Hi, everybody. Welcome to the new normal. I'm your host, Lisa Davis, aka Litecoin Lisa. I hope you all have been getting outside. We've had beautiful weather out, and I have been out walking, just like Dr. Reg recommends. Not too little, not too much, but make sure to get out and walk at least 30 minutes every day. I think is his recommendation, but I try to do a little bit more. Not too much more, though. We'll be right back with Dr. Reg talking about gastronomy today, right after this. Welcome, Dr. Reg. Great to have you.
Great to be here.
So we
alternatives.
Yes, talking about alternatives, and this is really exciting. Of course, when you said gastronomy, then I'm like, okay, well, it's close to dinner time. I'm ready to talk about eating, right? So can you tell us what we're going to talk about today about gastronomy? Because I'm sure you have a different twist on it.
First, I use the term deviations from normal health rather than ever using a disease term or a syndrome, because it's against federal law to use anything but a FDA prescription drug to improve or correct any disease or syndrome. So I just say deviations from normal health. And there are deviations from normal health that no one knows what the cause is. Science has not been able to find it. One of the common things is like multiple sclerosis or MS. No one really knows what causes it. And today we will talk about in the GI tract, one of the groups of things are called inflammatory bowel diseases as a group, and that includes ulcerative colitis and Crohn's disease. And no one knows what causes it, and actually any treatment doesn't work all that good. It does in some people for some times, but this reason I bring this up is that in this experience with more comprehensive nutrition, time and time again, we have found that if medicine and science doesn't know what causes a deviation from normal and what they use as to treat it, which is often steroids, doesn't work well. And in fact, more comprehensive nutrition over and over again has corrected the problem. And it got to the point that it seems like a good reliable thing is if medicine and science doesn't know what cause it, has nothing to treat it with, it works well, that's where comprehensive nutrition excels. And so we're going to be in that area today with the GI tract, if I recall our slides. And of course, gastro is talking about the GI tract, in particular the stomach. And let's go to the next slide.
Gastrology, not gastronomy. Aha, there we go. I was all excited, thought we were going to talk about food.
Anyway, our first slide is that something that very common in society is what I've just called the crud, or what's going around. Oftentimes, no one knows exactly what's causing it. Some call it gastrointestinal flu, or what a doctor may call infectious gastritis. But the World Health Organization says there are about 179,000 cases worldwide each year. And the symptoms vary greatly from person to person. And oftentimes just the term dyspepsia means something's not right in the GI tract. The stomach or the abdomen may feel upset. It may be present or not. There may be vomiting or not, or diarrhea or not, or headaches or foggy mind, yes or no, fever marked or mild, perspiring excessively, weakness and unstable. But a little mixture of these often goes with what we call the crud, and a person may just feel lousy, and they may or may not miss any work. It seems to be their psychological temperament. If they can find any excuse to be off of work, they'll use it. And other people are just tough, and they just go through with it. Next slide, please. But this term gastritis is very common. People just say, I got a bug, and they feel like they can prove about 11% of the cases are due to a virus, and that's a chain of nucleic acids that make up the virus, the same nucleic acids that make up the chromosomes in our body, but they're in different sequences than the DNA that are in human chromosomes. Now, bacterial wise, about 18% of the cases of, quote, the bug or the crud is due to the bacteria Campylobacter. And there are cases that they pretty well prove that it's due to food poisoning, particularly if they've got eggs in whatever it is. And this is often due to improper storage and refrigeration, which allows bacteria and viruses and toxins to be present. And also the parasites are sometimes in food that causes the crud. That poor temperature management allows them to get there. But Campylobacter is a gram-negative curved bacteria. Then it's most commonly found in chicken meat, and it causes most often diarrhea of the spectrum of symptoms I say that you may or may not have a mixture of. And this calls to mind that the Jewish kosher kitchen, that they did not mix in the kitchen on the same cabinet area different meats and vegetables, because they can cross contaminate. And but this calls to mind for about 10 years, I was the medical director for Dallas-Fort Worth Medical Center. And one of my favorite lecturers to come in and visit was Dr. Ivan Danhoff, who was an MD, PhD from Southwestern Medical School. And he got his MD degree the same year that I got mine, but he had gotten his PhD and was a member of the faculty in the physiology department when we were there. And he was a dynamite lecturer and had been received from the students recognition as the lecturer of the year a number of times. And he just like a machine gun with his delivery, but this time he came in and he was sort of foggy, like it was in a mental haze. And he finally told us that he had a 12-year-old girl referred to him there at the medical school by, she had been to multiple gastroenterologists in Dallas, and they had finally decided that she needed a total colectomy for ulcerative colitis. This is, as I mentioned to start with, one of these diseases of unknown cause. And what had him so perplexed was he could not find anything that would reduce about 20 bowel movements a day. Many of them were bloody and mucoid. And the grandmother said, give my granddaughter aloe vera leaf gel. And lo and behold, she converted to normal bowel habits. And he was just perplexed to hear the grandmother had come up with something for this 12-year-old girl, that it would be terrible to have to remove her colon for this colitis, because
Right.
bowel cripple for life. And here this grandmother had the cure. Well, that's the first time that I had been exposed to the healing power of aloe leaf gel. And that kind of prepared me for what would happen in 1985 when Carrington Laboratories came to me and wanted me to be a consultant because they had raised $20 million to try to analyze and work with aloe leaf gel and find out what was in it that was the cause that for over 5,000 years, aloe leaf gel had been used in folk medicine for multiple conditions. So let's go to the next slide, please.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
Well, this gastroenteritis is based as a theory that since they don't know what caused the inflammatory bowel disease, which is particularly divided between ulcerative colitis, which is a diffuse ulceration of the lining of the bowel, and Crohn's disease, which is a little narrow band that is ulcerated, and they both cause bleeding of the bowel and pain and cramping and weight loss and disabilities. And this gastroenteritis, because it has bacterial and also virus, that maybe that some of the viruses that cause gastroenteritis, they've theorized since the DNA in a virus is identical nucleic acids to the DNA in the chromosomes of humans, that it might be a DNA or RNA are altered by this virus, and this could be a theoretical cause for this expression of ulcerative colitis or Crohn's disease due to having had a bout of infectious gastroenteritis. So that's basically the basis for this theory, and why we're talking about it is people are always looking for a cause for diseases of unknown cause. Next slide, please. Now, as they say, oftentimes gastroenteritis has no known cause, and conventional medicine can't make a diagnosis for Crohn's disease or ulcerative colitis in regard to a cause. And since it's one of these diseases that of unknown cause, the giving of steroids is very common, but steroids have a lot of complications and toxicity. Most commonly is that the individual's immune system is suppressed, and also that the steroids have a toxicity that causes problems in the patients. One of the worst of them is the decalcification of the bones, osteoporosis. And so since the gastroenteritis is such a ubiquitous thing and so common, and there are different kind of viruses that might cause it, they've come up with this theory that maybe this is a triggering device, that the DNA of the virus gets into the cells of the bowel lining and causes this chronic ulceration of ulcerative colitis, or even that band of the Crohn's disease. And the grandmother telling us that the aloe helped this little 12-year-old girl. Well, in the research for Carrington Laboratories, it was found out that 9 molecules of the active ingredient from the aloe leaf gel, which is acetylated mannose and for short called acemannan, is in the second step of cellular synthesis, which is the endoplasmic reticulum that's substituted just by a capital ER, is used to make a cell-to-cell communication domain on the membrane of all cells in the body. And this site of the domain uh, fosters balance in all the cells in the early S1 phase of cell cycles. We pretty well recognize that as human beings, our total body cycles. We have a sleeping cycle, we have a waking cycle, we have times that we eat, times that we urinate, times that we defecate. There's even times in life when there's reproduction, and it's the time before that you're old enough is a sequence, and then there's a time after reproduction as we get older in age. But in the cells, there are phases that cycle also, and one of them is in S1 phase, when everything in the cell is put into balance. And this is not a new terminology, because Dr. Hans Selye, who's considered the father of human physiology, called this state of balance homeostasis. And in homeostasis inside the cell, the genes are turned on to normalize every ingredient or component of the cell. You get the sodium in it to a low level, and it's primarily in the serum, but the potassium is high in the cell for normal conditions, and when there's stimulation, it is released through the cell membrane. But then calcium, magnesium, and then nutrients, and then there's a certain level that from cellular metabolism of waste materials. And if there's high, well, during this S1 phase, they get rid of it and get it back down to the normal zone. Well, that's what this active ingredient from the aloe does, is get the cell into the balanced, harmonious homeostasis stage of cells. And possibly this is why the aloe-ace mannan helped the little 12-year-old girl, and we've repeated this time and time again with other patients with ulcerative colitis and Crohn's disease, and they have gotten benefit too. I particularly remember in the early phases of this research, we had a male nurse from Baylor Medical Center, and he was receiving the ace mannan for his condition of AIDS, for which we found out was retrovirus. And one day he made the comment that it's a hell of a note that I would get AIDS. I take this ace mannan orally for the AIDS, and he says they've canceled my surgery for my bowel condition. I said, you didn't tell me you had that. He says, yes, I have had ulcerative colitis for some time, and they were going to cut out some of my colon, but it's all healed up as a secondary benefit from taking ace mannan. Well, this adds to the theory that that's why this condition improves, because of the ability of the ace mannan to get the cells into balance or homeostasis. And so, as I may have said before, time and time again, we have found out that if medicine and science does not know what causes a disease or syndrome, which I call a deviation from normal, and no medicine is effective, and whatever they give doesn't really help very much, that is a way to determine that more comprehensive nutrition, time and time again, corrects the problem. And that's what the DNA in our chromosomes are programs to control cellular synthesis, to make compounds that are bioactive, to move the physiology inside the cell and the cells working together to the normal zone, which is homeostasis. And of course, this active ingredient from aloe supports moving to homeostasis. And of course, the secret is in homeostasis, when everything's in its normal zone, just trying to move to normal, you feel better. But if you reach homeostasis, you do not have deviations from normal, which for communication purposes, we call these profiles of abnormal symptoms and signs, a disease or a syndrome. Well, more comprehensive nutrition, which gives the genes what it needs to make the bioactive compounds to move to homeostasis. This is why it works so commonly, and why now I have brought this up, because of their theory that gastroenteritis might be due to some changes in the cell that's caused by the infectious agent that caused the gastroenteritis. Next slide, please.
It's a really powerful story to hear, because so many people with AIDS, don't have that's literally their immune system is compromised, so their body's not able to repair. So,
yeah. Well, at the same time that we were doing the original 15 patients with AIDS for Carrington Laboratories, we had 5 patients at Dallas Fort Worth Medical Center that had so advanced ulcerative colitis, they had lost weight and were debilitated, that even though the gastroenterologist had said that they need to have their colon removed, that was believed that they were too weak and too far advanced to survive the anesthesia and the trauma of the surgery. And so they weren't removing their colon. They just continued with their symptoms. And they were very bad cases. They looked terribly sick, and their skin over their bones, no excess adipose tissue, but subcutaneously, and they were all deteriorating. So since they couldn't have the surgery, they were deteriorating. We could do no damage. So we gave them 4 capsules daily of the pure aloe ace-mannin that we were giving to the AIDS patients. Well, in a week, they had no pain in their abdomen. By 2 weeks, they no longer had multiple bowel movements that were mucoid or bloody. And by the 3rd week, they were having farm stools with no pain and no cramps after eating a regular meal. And by the end of a month, they were gaining weight, having no complaints of this inflammatory bowel disease. And I had a gastroenterologist that phoned me, says 2 weeks ago I had done a scoping, and I rated this patient as a 4+ pan colitis, that everywhere I looked there was bloody ulcers inside the bowel with this instrument to look inside the colon. He says, I can't believe it. He said, this patient, having gone through what I just showed you, the 4 capsules of ace-mannin daily, it looks normal. The mucosa is healed. And I will particularly remember one of those 5 patients was a young woman, I'd say in her early 30s, and she and her husband came, and they were in tears of happiness, because for over 2 years she had been so debilitated and so sick and having so many bowel movements, they had not had sexual relations in 2 years. Well, with this 4 capsules a day, this had been corrected, and they were just so appreciative. They had to come, and it was a very emotional and gratifying experience to see a young couple much more happier in life, and particularly in their marriage, because it had been restored. Also, separate from these 5 children, word got circulated in the medical community, and there was a child north of here in a small community that had lost his parents, and he had inflammatory bowel disease, and
Mm.
nobody would adopt him. Well, he was put on the aloe capsules, and he all his symptoms went away, and he was adopted. So there's, in addition to the physical benefits, there are emotional, psychological, social benefits too, like with this couple and with this child that could be adopted because his disease symptoms went away. Next slide, please.
That's amazing.
Well, as I had told you, the came up with this theory that the episodes of gastroenteritis cause long-term inflammatory bowel disease, and the had a study of gastrointestinal bacterial flora, and it was compared to cognitive function in adult females, is the title of the paper, and it was published in the USDA, National Institute of Food and Agricultural Research, and the lead author was A.M. Taylor, the second one Edwards, and others. In the number of studies they had in there, the females were aged 25 to 45, and there are 24 of them, and they were tested for executive function. I don't know what this terms of this psychological survey was. They were also tested for interference control. Could they keep on focus? And they were calculated based on accuracy of the reaction time, and they compared percent body fat is determined by DEXA scans and the diaphragm intake and the IQs. They also took the fecal specimens and they analyzed for different bacterial species and ratios of the species of the bowel flora for its impact on the above brain functions. In other words, do the organisms that are in the large bowel that contribute to processing food that we take to make nutrient molecules available to be taken up in the serum and pumped around to the different cells, when the blood that goes through the brain, does it influence the bacteria in the gut, influence executive function or either interference control, of being able to keep your mind on focus of whatever your task is? Next slide, please. Well, the results is that the Bacteroides species fermaclinical ratio was not related to body fat or to the dietary fiber, that this same species of bacteria from the gut was associated with the interference control measures of ability to stay on focus for the thoughts or the tasks that you're trying to do. And that this bacterial ratio was as the ratio changed, the accuracy interference and was changed, and the reaction time was negatively coordinated with the bacterial population. And the conclusion was that this is the first time they'd done a study that functions of the brain were influenced by the population of the gut bacteria, and that there were changes in the major bacterial ratios in the gut with these cognitive functions. And this, they said, was a real important conclusion, that they needed more studies and more individuals to see if this is repeatable. And
Right.
that's one of the important things about research, is doing it one time is usually not enough, and doing it in one place with one group of investigators is enough. It's got to be something that can be repeated over and over again, again, relating to the fact that there are multiple deviations from normal or diseases or syndromes that no one can identify what causes it. And this was one of the first times that anything had been found that suggested that the bowel flora influences brain function. And of course, in the gastroenteritis, one of the things they had is fogginess and poor thought processing
Mhm.
that is unrelated to ulcerative colitis or Crohn's disease, but does relate to function of the quality of the nutrients that are pumped around to the various organs in the blood. Next slide, please.
That makes a lot of sense. Oh, it says that
Well,
we couldn't.
that's our last slide, but
Then maybe that was our last slide. Okay.
again, I wanted to emphasize that in this 39 years that I've been involved with a focus on the active ingredient from the aloe, time and time again, when medicine and science doesn't know what causes a deviation from normal, they do not have any drug or medication that is reliable to correct the problem. And in fact, some of the medications given give side effects and toxicities that are worse than the original condition. That is where more comprehensive nutrition, providing to the genes with their program that controls cellular synthesis to make bioactive structure function molecules that are designed by the information in DNA to move the body's biochemistry and physiology to the normal zone has worked over and over again. Again, if the medicine science doesn't know what causes it, doesn't have anything for it,
Right.
more comprehensive nutrition seems to work more often than we ever thought was possible. And
Well, you've told those stories about the vet schools that they go to that first because of the cost involved, because it's a lot cheaper to just feed your animal right versus pumping it full of a bunch of drugs. And we should do that. We should treat humans just as kind, I would think.
well, that's one of the things that in this research I discovered because the number one institution, academic institution, that worked on contract for Carrington Laboratories when it was trying to make a drug of the active ingredient of aloe vera, uh, I found out that at Texas A&M, the core curriculum is for all animals is built around optimizing nutrition. And as I say, one of the reasons they found this out is that you can't make money feeding expensive drugs to animals, whether it be chickens, cattle, or uh, sheep, or any whatever animal it is.
Right.
The most economical and safest, with the least side effects that you can come up with, is optimal nutrition. We have 7 medical schools in Texas, and not a one of them have a course in nutrition for young doctors being trained. And this is recognized as a serious deficiency. And I have a manuscript right here in my hand from England, where 2 large uh, groups of medical professionals organizations have published a position paper that was presented to the National Health Service that is responsible for health care for all the individuals in England that is paid for by the government. That this position paper says that the health service should be looking more at nutrition to improve health and less dependent upon expensive, side effect laden, and toxic drugs. And in fact, there was a dietary supplement company in London that sent me to Brussels, Belgium twice when they were developing the laws and rules for the European Common Market for drugs and dietary supplements. And I never was able to go to the general meeting, but I did meet with the English delegation that attended to it. And my theme was we need a definition for drugs and a definition from dietary supplements that are not commercially dictated by people that have a vested interest promoting medications.
Right.
That drugs have a method of action that drugs interfere with the normal biochemistry and cascades of activity in the cell. They either substitute, block, stimulate, or depress the activity of normal gene control of the biochemistry of life. And an ideal drug is one that improves the symptoms, but if you quit taking it, the symptoms come back because the drug doesn't address the cause for the deviations from normal. All it does is make you feel better temporarily. And nutrition is utilize the molecules are in cellular synthesis to make bioactive molecules that correct the cause of symptoms. And that's why you don't have toxicities and side effects. And that's in fact why Carrington Laboratories was thrown out of the FDA, because we could show no toxicity or side effects from the active ingredient from the aloe vera. And the father of pharmacology, Paracelsus, most famous statement was, all drugs are poisons. The benefit depends on the dose. And that's why all countries that have government-approved drugs, the first phase of testing to try to become a new drug is toxicity testing. You must tell them how much of the substance that you want to make into a drug will kill half of the test animals, and how much of it does it take to kill all of them. That's called LD, lethal dose, 50, LD 100. And there must be a wide zone or window between 50% killing of the animals and 100%, or they won't let you proceed to the next phase, is where you start to give it in small doses to human beings. You got to use animals in the first phase. And that should not be really too comforting to know that
should terrify everyone.
drugs, you got to know LD 50 and LD 100. And one of the things I frequently tell people that come to me complaining about the cost of health care is that they should ask for the doctor, anytime they're writing out a prescription, is this on the generic list of these pharmacists? Because the generic list is drugs that have been patented for approximately 20 years, and the patent is run out, and the drug company doesn't want to continue to make it and sell it because they want to go on to new drugs because the generic drugs, a good example is that small companies bid for these drugs that for 20 years have been effective with low toxicity. Those are the only ones that are on the generic list. They were valuable for the condition they were designed for, and the toxicity and the side effects are minimal. And so that's on the generic list. And instead of costing from $350 or more per prescription, sometimes they're $15 to $25. And so always ask, is there a generic equivalent to whatever you're writing for? Because I don't want to have to pay the price of a in-patent drug. And I gave you those little typical prices, but you may watch on television these ads that they have for hepatitis. And I was surprised to find out, because of a pilot study that was done in a clinic over in Dallas, that for a month of one of these hepatitis drugs, it can cost up to $75,000 to
Wow,
$90,000.
it's
And
crazy.
of course, after it goes out of patent, there's no intellectual property protection, and it becomes small companies that are happy to have a small profit
Mhm.
uh, uh, compete to provide this drug to be on the generic list. And to emphasize this even more, when Viagra came out, it was over $80 a pill. And I know because I was 70 years old and I bought 3 pills, which cost $320, if I recall correctly. Well, now it's gone out of patent, and from CVS, you can get it for less than $1 a pill because,
That's incredible markup.
and
Wow.
this is one of the reasons that in Washington we constantly have this debate going up there. We're going to cut the price of drugs, and the lobbyists for the drug companies come in and they accuse them of charging too much, and all they say, "Oh, we have to trust about 100 or 200 drugs before we have one that gets through the FDA approval process, and all this money must be
Yeah.
spent on this and all." Yet the truth of the matter is that every foundation, like is for the teachers of Texas, there's billions of dollars that are invested in stocks, and they always want to have a big block of drug or pharmaceutical company stocks because they pay dividends, because they're so much more profitable than other companies. And when the stock market goes down, the pharmaceutical companies don't go down as rapidly and as much as other companies. And when they go up, they always go up. So they're very profitable companies. And they're always talk about trying to bring this under control because as a person ages and retires and all, they can't afford. The average Medicare patient, they say, takes 5 drugs. Well, if the 5 drugs cost $350 a piece, that's a
Yeah.
lot of money. Fact is, that's
Yeah.
more than their Social Security income. So that's one of the reasons I urge people to ask, is there a generic equivalent to this? Because it has been proven safe. And you also need to know that some of the drugs that are in patent, they have to take off the availability. The FDA pulls that drug because when thousands of people take it, they find out that there's a significant number that have strokes or heart attacks or bone marrow suppression or liver or kidney failure due to the toxicity of these drugs. Because Paracelsus, not me, said his most famous statement, all drugs are poisons. So you need to, if you possibly can, to turn to nutrition, more optimal nutrition, because it's safe, effective, and it supports the engineering and design of life as is coded in DNA, and it's not a poison of the natural processes of biochemistry.
Wonderful. And you can do that by clicking the link in the description of this video or going to Wellness Quest. Oh, no, I'm sorry. Hold on. It's not Wellness Quest.
Well, you see my email
Wellnessquest.org.
there. If you
Yeah.
got any questions, I'll be able to respond. But you really should consider adding this to your diet, the New Eden, because it contains nutrient molecules that are either low or missing or avoided by choice in the American diet. That's what's in New Eden. And it gives the genes what they need in cellular synthesis to more accurately and completely make bioactive compounds in cellular synthesis to normalize health.
Yes. And when you sign up for a 6-month auto ship program, you get a free box of probiotic monthly supply as well. And it also gives you 20% off. So that's really the best way to go about it. I do get a little kickback, so it helps support the channel as well. And you'll get healthy. So we'll spend more time together. So all in all, it's a great deal. You can also email Dr. Reg with any questions. I had his email up here a second ago.
Well, that probiotic that's free with every month is why I threw in that study about the flora that's in the bowel can influence decisions and function of the brain in that study. And having the bifidobacteria or the friendly bacteria that is in Malagro contributes to improved health.
Yeah, it's wonderful stuff. So that's just another benefit that you guys can find there at wellnessquest.org. Once again, you can email Dr. McDaniel if you have any questions. He's very generous with his time and knowledge at capital R McDaniel at wellnessquest.org. And leave us a question or comment in the video below and we'll get to it. We do these every 2 weeks. So we'll come back and answer your question then. Thanks for joining us. Thank you, Dr. Reg.
Thank you.